Welcome, fellow last placers, to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about comic books, movies, and TV shows. And if you guys didn't notice, which you can't because also don't have the video up, so Chris is not here with us today, but we do have Richard with us, and he is going to join me in shaming Chris for not watching Batman. So, Richard, please join me in a shaming of Chris. Shame. So
I'm vengeance.
So just like Richard just did right there, we are going to be talking about the Batman directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz. I mean, it's a long list. We got Paul Dini. Who else is in here? We got Colin. Like, just so many big names in this movie. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about we are 5 subs away from giving away this mouse. So guys, please tell a friend, do all that good stuff. That way we can give away this mouse and we could start giving away other things. And as always, we are going to be doing some spoilers. So if you guys don't like spoilers, you can stop now because we are not going to hold back. And I've warned you, so you've got your time to leave now. But if you're into spoilers, then stick around. So let's talk about the Batman. Richard, I'm going to ask you first. Before we get into the movie itself, I want to know, I'm going to do this a little bit different. I want to know, what was your expectations going into this, into the movie?
Well, I guess I'll take you through a mini timeline. When it was first announced, I was like, really?
Mhm.
Robert Pattinson? The guy from Harry Potter? Cedric Diggory? Really? I was never a Hufflepuff, but I guess. And I didn't have much hopes because I haven't seen any of Robert Pattinson's other work.
Oh, yeah?
I had no idea.
You didn't watch Twilight? No
I didn't actually. I
Okay.
did not watch Twilight. I stayed far away. And I've heard the things of he himself wasn't a fan of that franchise and things like that. And I've heard other good things where he actually is a very talented actor, but I personally have never seen anything. So I personally didn't really have any hope for it. I knew we were having a younger Batman in this setting, and he has the younger face and everything. I was like, okay, I guess it'll be whatever it is. I didn't have. I mean, I don't think anyone had much hope for any DC movie coming out.
You could say that too. So
So that already was. It was kind of like, And as soon as you see that first trailer we got, where he comes in and he brutally beats this guy. Immediately, I was like, I am sold. Let's go. Let's go.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because as a person, as a lot of people know who do follow us, I don't actually watch trailers. So my experience behind it was kind of like, I have seen a lot of Robert Pattinson's work, and a lot of people know me. I just love watching movies. So I have seen a lot of his work, and I know for a fact that he is a really good actor, and I've known it for a while because a lot of his work outside of Twilight has been really good. And and Twilight's not his fault. You take your upcoming actor, you take the roles that you can take. You know what I mean? So, and fun fact, I found out today that Robert Pattinson, Andrew Garfield, and Charlie Cox were all roommates in London. Didn't know that till today. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's such a good acting pool. It's kind of ridiculous to think that all 3 of them were, but it is a small world when it comes to acting. So, but anyway, I knew, I did expect him to do great, and I was happy for him when I found out that he was getting this role, because I know there's a lot of people who haven't watched his other stuff because they are deeper cuts. So I was glad, because I was like, you know what, people are going to get to see that this dude is, more than Twilight, because us, I'm not saying us as in you and I, but a lot of people do associate big actors with like that one role that they know them for. So we got all of those memes that people are like, oh, it's going to be a vampire bat, like all that, stuff like that. So I was excited. And then I saw the rest of the cast and I was like, oof. And I am a fan of Matt Reeves' work. So I was like, you know what? Let me go in. I'm not going to try to hype myself up. And a lot of people know that Batman is my favorite hero. So I was like, I have to go in there with a, ready, prepared. Like, you know what I mean? I might be let down. I might be super excited. So
Mm.
that was my expectation going in to the movie. So then the movie, now let's get into talking about the movie itself. Then the
Mm.
movie came out, and let me know what you thought about the movie,
Oh
Rich.
my god. This movie actually went far beyond
Mhm,
any expectation I had. Before, I was just so like, that trailer was awesome. I am that trailer already convinced me that Robert Pattinson was the way to go,
mhm.
right? The voice, the way he carried himself, I was like, oh yeah, like this is it, right? That movie went far beyond what I could ever imagine it would be. I just thought this was gonna be like a decent movie,
Mhm.
right? I would have never expected it to being, and this may be controversial, probably one of the best Batman movies ever made.
And I'm
And
gonna reiterate on that before you go on, but I'm not gonna say. So I want people to understand this. That I feel like Dark Knight is always gonna be my favorite. I think
right.
it's always gonna be a mixture of nostalgia, of us getting what I think is the best iteration of Joker. Just the
Agree.
timing, like every how I've experienced it, and the amount of times I've watched that movie. Right. So I'm
Mhm.
culminating all of that, but I will agree with you on that. This is 100% to me a top 3 Batman movie. And I will go as far as saying, like, I was telling my boy Kyle, which Richard knows, but I was
Oh, yeah.
telling Kyle this, that I was like, that's the most Batman movie we've ever seen. And I don't want people to
Absolutely.
think that, oh, that means it's the best Batman movie we've seen, because it does have its flaws, which we'll get into later on.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
as far as
for sure.
Batman being concerned, like, this movie was the first movie I think that has showed all elements of Batman the best.
Mhm.
Like,
And I that is important.
mhm,
It showed all elements of Batman. We're
yeah,
not just getting like Bruiser Batman.
mhm,
We're not just getting dark broody Batman. No, we are getting every like iteration of Batman. Maybe not the cheesy so
mhm,
much, but
yeah,
there's even a little bit of that, I would
yeah,
say. There's like a little bit of joking
yeah.
in
With
there,
the
but
joking with him and Catwoman for sure was the little
yeah,
bit, yeah,
but we are getting kind of like every version of Batman into one, and it feels natural. It
mhm.
feels like a natural part of the character. It feels normal, and it was great to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And I like, just to go on to what I was saying too, is this like we never gotten a Batman where I felt like what you just said, where we got all three culminate into one. Like I felt like Dark Knight did a really good job at, showing Batman as like the character within itself. Like showing the character like trying to, work this out, trying to being kind of over it, but you know what, I need to get back it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm working hard to be Batman, but we didn't see that much of the detective side. We did see great fighting in Dark
Right.
Knight. We saw obviously the wonderful rogues gallery of Batman in the Dark
Hmm.
Knight. So we did see, the best villain, his arch nemesis at its height, in my opinion. So we did see that of Batman. This movie, though, we saw Detective Batman, which I felt was like never iterated correctly in a movie till now. Like that first
Hmm.
scene where he's just like, when obviously, Riddler, for you guys who've already watched it, Riddler is the main villain in this, and just
Hmm.
how when he steps in to talk to Gordon, like, and Gordon's like, yo, let him in, like, you know what I mean, and you could just see him slowly picking up clues that all these other detectives could not pick up, right? And you're just like, man,
Yes.
like he sees a little blood on the floor, he's picking up the riddles really quickly. Like it was so refreshing to see him in the light of being what we know as the best detective, even though this is, this is year 2 Batman, which
Yes.
my next question was going to be, but I'll just finish this point real quick, was like we'd never seen that before. I feel like I know
Hmm.
Dark Knight tried to express it when he does the whole bullet thing and then gets the
Right.
fingerprints on the bullet, but it wasn't like this, how, he has the computer, he has the contact lens that's recording like all the time, like, recording his moves and all that stuff, like recording conversations and being able to have that communication. Like we've never seen that. So I thought it was so good and so refreshing to see that form of Batman that we haven't seen properly. I felt like properly iterated until this movie. So also, this movie is also based off of one of my favorite Batman stories of all time, which is The Long Halloween. And I was
Long
going to ask,
Halloween.
and I was going to ask you, have you watched? I mean, have you read The Long Halloween? Just so people know how we're looking at it too, because I do definitely know that the people who have read Long Halloween definitely look at this movie in a different light than the people who haven't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I actually read The Long Halloween. I've seen the recent animated movie they
Mhm.
made on The Long Halloween. Um, I'm very familiar with it, and I think this movie does a
Yeah.
pretty good job. I gotta
Mhm.
say.
And I agree 100% because, like I said, Long Halloween is one of I think is a top 5 Batman story. And I
Yeah,
know a lot of people said, the 3 hours were long, but that is the goal
I did
of.
not feel them.
Me neither. And I felt like that is the goal of the story anyway, right? Because it's supposed to feel, that's why he tells you, like, if you notice, Matt Reeves makes sure that you knew exactly what dates were in there, right? Because he's like,
Yeah.
this started October 31st and it ended November 8th. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was a long Halloween for Batman, and it's supposed to feel drenched because you're supposed to feel like this was just a long day for this dude. And I felt like they did a really good. And I think a lot of people who are like, well, it was a bit slow. It's like that's also by design because like it's supposed to feel long. Like, you know what I mean? It's supposed to feel like this dude has been trying to chase this dude for multiple days and he just can't catch him yet. Like, you know what I mean? So I think they did a really good job at drawing that out, like making us feel like it was a long Halloween. So that's why I know, like, hearing some people's opinion and not everyone's, but I would love to hear everyone who has watched it put in the comments, let us know how you feel. But like, I know some people who haven't read The Long Halloween and did have that feeling where they said they felt it was a little bit long, but they still really enjoyed the movie, which is what I like to hear too. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to go watch this with my girlfriend, and
mm,
we we were just saying like how we didn't really feel the length of the movie because of how engaging it was
mhm,
for us personally. Like that movie, I think the only time it maybe drags is a little bit later when the third act is about to start. It's like the ending of the second act, third act.
mhm.
When he goes to like kind of visit Alfred and stuff.
Yes.
I felt like that's kind of like the slowdown of the movie. But
Mm,
other than that, the pacing of the movie is so good. It does not waste time.
mhm.
It's probably one of the mainstream movies that doesn't have filler in it, right?
Yeah.
It's just there's no useless dialogue, there's no useless scenes to like the way Matt Reeves directed this movie is
Mhm.
fantastic. The way he sets up his world, he doesn't just like waste the shot completely on just like showing you something. You can get a sense of the atmosphere why a scene is happening. The way he sets his camera shots and the way the camera director like
Oh man.
perfectly captured whatever Matt Reeves was trying to do. Like, it's a team effort when
Mhm.
you're working on a film and it just felt like they were all in sync.
Absolutely.
He painted a vision, and that camera team they went out there and they did exactly what he was looking for because you get the whole entire sense of Gotham when
Mhm.
you're watching these scenes, and they didn't really have to like take these long drawn out shots of Gotham per se without something moving the plot forward. It was great. It was like kind of doubling down. There wasn't a lot of wasted scenery in this movie, and it's a long movie.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine like how much they're really shoving in this movie. This movie is so great.
Yeah.
The way
And
it works is great.
yeah, and I agree with you too. And I'm glad you brought up the Matt Reeves, like just the direction style and stuff like that, because I felt like also, and I'm glad you brought up Gotham because I felt like Gotham was represented so well in this movie that,
Oh yeah.
as far as the city itself, right, having that really dark, dredged like feeling where like
Always
Batman
raining.
always raining, it's always dark, and it always feels gloomy, and it just adds to
Hmm.
what we were talking about with Long Halloween. Like it just feels like this long day. And then not to mention the way that Batman entered in this movie was probably my
Amazing.
favorite because it's like
Easy.
he literally is entering like this presence that we want him to be, right? Like I felt like even that first scene, right, when they go the one that is in the trailer, because I do watch the trailers afterwards, but the one that is
Right.
in the trailer when he first enters the subway, right? And it's like
Hmm.
you've got that long, the slow steps like, you know what I mean? And you
The
know someone,
noise,
yeah.
and they did that boot noise
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole
Whole
movie.
movie.
They set the stage
Mm-hmm.
that you know he is coming
Yeah.
when you hear that stomping. Boom,
Yeah.
boom. And I was like, oh my gosh.
And it was perfect because it's like a no nonsense Batman, right? Because this is year two
Mm,
Batman, which another thing that I love that they reiterated is that, like, look, you don't need the story anymore. Like, we don't need to know what happened. Like, we don't need to know what happened to the parents. We know that story already. It's the
and they
same.
still somewhat tell it to you
Hmm. Yeah. And they don't, like you said, they don't
through
waste the
another
time.
kid.
Hmm.
Through through part of the plot, they tell you the origin without really having to tell you.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who Batman is, but you can see the trauma he has when this kid goes through a similar scenario of him,
Hmm.
of this kid finding his dad murdered,
Hmm.
and he sees that kid in trauma, and you see it in his face through his acting through that mask. You can see him kind of rewinding it in his head. They
Yeah.
even have a scene later on in the movie where he's kind of like in an alleyway underneath a light,
Yep.
um with Falcone, where you see that image of him in the alleyway, like you. And they didn't need to like do a flashback to show it. You just know. You've seen it so many times
Hmm.
through all these other iterations. You just know it. And I think Matt Reeves takes advantage of the fact that everybody knows Batman by now,
Exactly.
and
And
you can take advantage of that.
yeah, and like you said, I think you know, Marvel also did that with with the newest Spider-Man, right? So like I think it's
Mm-hmm.
nice that, like, when you're doing a character who's been multiply used and used plenty of times, like, we don't need that origin story. And I think your audience, I think it was smart of Matt Reeves to know his audience, right? Because that's important.
Mm-hmm.
You know your audience, you know that a lot of people who are coming to watch this are not going to be first time Batman watchers, right? So,
Yeah.
or they know something about how Batman's origin has started. Even though they've added that little sprinkle of, because I know a lot of people don't know about the whole
Mm-hmm.
Arkham stuff, where like Martha's last name was actually Arkham and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
which and a comic book recommendation if you guys haven't, but there are some really good stories where Martha is Joker, and definitely check those out too. But
Shout out Flashpoint.
exactly. Right. So I think there's really good, I think it was really cool to show that, and then even showing that, like, how they were doing like a political run which relates to you know, to Thomas running for mayor, right? So like I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was really cool that they were kind of like, hey, here's this timeline, this is what was happening, this is happening again, but like now we're seeing this guy peel like some of the stuff back, like the Riddler is now peeling things back so you could see like the
Mm-hmm.
corruption and stuff like that. So, and then it also makes you really go, you know what, how much, and I think it's always good when you have a villain where people question his motive, but are like, you know what, I can see why he's doing this, right? And I think with the
Mm-hmm.
Riddler, they did a really good job at making him still the Riddler, right? Even though this was like a
Yep.
different like turn like take on him, they still made him the Riddler. They added a little Zodiac killer to him, and but he would still like, here's these riddles, you need to come find me, and you're not going to find me because I'm always one step ahead.
So while we're talking about the Riddler,
Mhm.
so the Riddler is very interesting. So they kind of play on. So when you see the Riddler, he's kind of like this chill, relaxed guy. He's arrogant. He thinks he knows it all, right? And he always has the answers. But I feel like the Riddler we got in this movie is more akin to when the Riddler is against the wall. Like in
Mhm.
comic books, video games, whenever he's against the wall, you see him get a little
Yeah.
crazier, right? He gets a little bit more aggressive. And I feel like the movie just played that Riddler,
Mhm.
right? Kind of throughout the whole thing. And it was great because it was still the Riddler, but it was like they focused more on the kind of frantic Riddler that feels like he's cornered, and he's a little bit angrier, more aggressive, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because he's had enough of the situation that's going on. Because he's also,
Mhm.
which again makes it really good, is that they made him a civilian of Gotham, right? So like
Yeah.
he's feeling the effects of what the Waynes did, and like he's feeling those effects of being an orphan himself, which you know, is a really good way of being like, here's how these characters relate to each other also, like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean. And Riddler saying, look, there's like, I was an orphan, like, you know what I mean, even though he doesn't know who Bruce is or who Batman is, he kind of thinks that, hey, maybe you understand what I'm saying, like I was an orphan and it's messed up like that they did this to me. like the way that I had to live my life. Like, you know what I mean? How is that fair to me and all the other
Mhm.
kids like that were going through all of this? So I think they did a really good job at just establishing how he was. I love the Easter egg of basically them putting like each note that he put like kind of like referred or was like a reference to a Batman villain, like the Rogues
Yeah.
Gallery. If you like pay attention, you'll see
Mhm.
some stuff that are like, you know, of the like it's just really cool for them to do like those little things that I love to see in comic book movies where it's like, hey, you're like, you don't need to read this, but if you have, here's an Easter egg. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. And
so
it's super subtle.
super subtle. It's not in your face, but it also is like, oh, like it's something nice to when you go back and watch it, and you know, like, oh snap, like that's a shot, like that's a call to Poison Ivy, or that's a call to like this like villain. So I thought it was
Mhm.
really interesting how they did it, and I loved Paul's acting as the Riddler. I thought he was like
Oh,
just
yeah.
phenomenal.
Great.
Like his voice.
Everyone was fantastic.
Yeah, that's another thing. I really did the cast itself was just I just such so well casted. Like, you know what I mean?
So
Like
much talent.
so much talent in that cast. And that's one thing I'm loving to see is that a lot of these actors and high level actors are accepting these comic book roles because, you know, at first we know how comic book movies started. And I mean, we still get this
Mhm.
to today where people is like, it's not real cinema, blah blah blah. So like, and which I can't stand by these old school directors that are doing that. Like directors that I like
Yeah.
Scorsese, who I love and respect, and
Mhm.
like you know what I mean. And a lot of these, I just feel like it's too much of a thing where people are like, oh, let's just bash on these comic book movies in order to prop our movies up. Like, look, it's a different form of movie. If you don't like it, that's fine. You have a choice to watch it. I just don't feel like you need to bash it in order to prop your movies up. Because some of these movies, like this movie is a perfect example, is really not good cinema. Because I will get into one of my favorite scenes, which was the Batmobile scene. Because I don't think I've ever been like, I don't know. I was just so giddy during that scene because it was a perfect culmination of feeling like old school Batman chase, but also just with this modern touch, right? And it just, you felt the, like you said, the camera angles were perfect, right? So that whole camera angle where it's
Yes.
right behind the car and you feel the, and I watched it in Dolby. So the sound was like my seat was rumbling,
Boom.
right? So it's
Yeah.
just like, you know what I mean? And you're just
You
getting
feel
hype.
that engine.
Like you feel that engine going and you're in there with Batman trying to make these because you can tell he hasn't been able to do these like major car scenes, right? Like he hasn't like even the
Mhm.
character himself hasn't done these major chases with this car yet. Like, you know what I mean? But
Not at all.
him
You can
be
see the inexperience.
hmm
They do a really good job of reminding you throughout the whole film. They just have little subtle ways of reminding you that this is only 2 years on the job.
yeah,
Like he'll make a mistake here and there. Or in the other Batman films or other things that feature Batman, he seems a little too perfect.
yeah.
Like everything's
He's got it
already
all
kind of
figured
planned
out.
out.
Yeah.
Right. Which
hmm
makes sense for a later Batman.
hmm
But like this Batman is just like he's flawed. He's always messing up certain things, and like you said, in this, you can definitely tell he has never been in a car chase
hmm
like this before,
Yeah.
and it shows. But he's still Batman,
Yeah.
right? He's still making like
Quick
calculated
decisions.
decisions because he did train for this.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the experience, but he trained for it. So you can see he's making quick decisions on the fly, and it's not the cleanest, but he gets the job done. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's such a good scene. And then he hits that ramp, and then like
Amazing.
you see him come out the fire, which is
Yeah.
such a Batman. Like, and that's why I'm saying again, this is why this movie to me is just the most
Mhm.
Batman movie ever. Because not only like I said, all these scenes, but also like this was the most we've ever seen Batman in his suit. Like, because there was just so
Yes, I
many
was gonna say that
yeah.
later.
He
This is the Batman. You
yeah.
see Batman. Imagine going to the movie theater, the movie you paid for, and you
Mhm,
see the character you wanted
mhm.
to see
Yeah.
in the movie for like 80% of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you see him throughout the whole movie, and
Mhm.
you see him a lot, and you see him even have his dialogues as Batman. Like even when he goes
Yes.
into the Batcave, which was also gorgeous, by the way. He
Mm-hmm.
goes into the Batcave. Even when he takes off the mask, you know that that's still Batman you're
Yeah.
dealing with. Like, you know what I mean? Even though it's like we saw very small doses of Bruce, right? We saw Bruce in the church scene,
Very little.
which was
Very
really
little
good.
Bruce.
Yeah. And then you
Mm-hmm.
saw him with, like you said earlier, with the conversation with Alfred. But like it's so much Batman that we saw. And then
So much. I love
gets
it.
when he gets out that flame, right, and then he just walks up the Penguin, like
Mm-hmm.
that scene, that shot with the fire
What a
behind him. Oh,
badass scene.
I mean, come on, like you know what I mean. There were just so many well done things in this movie that, again, I want people to like. I really do want people to give this movie a chance because there's so much good Batman stuff that we got, right? And then, like I said, we're gonna go like just continuing talking about the cast. Also, I mean, we had Zoe Kravitz playing Catwoman,
Catwoman.
and
Mm-hmm.
she plays Catwoman to the Catwoman that she needed to play was the one that she played. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
so I think I want like I know a lot. I've seen a lot of people, some people online say, you know, oh, she doesn't do much like as far as things. But I was like, that's
I
not a
personally enjoyed her performance.
like me too. And I'm like, that's not the Catwoman that's fully developed yet, right? Like, first of all, she
Right.
just not even like she just knows that she has like a certain sign of skills. She hasn't even really started her thieving journey yet, right? Where she's like, oh, it's me against the world kind of thing. Like she's getting
Mm-hmm.
to that. So this is kind of like, in a sense, her origin story, right? That we're seeing
This is
before
a
our
lot of
eyes.
people's origins,
Hmm.
honestly. A lot of the Rogues Gallery,
Yeah,
this is their origin story. You know, it may not be Batman's origin, but as far as the Rogues Gallery, this is
absolutely.
kind of their beginning. You know,
Hmm.
this is where they start.
And we need that because, you know, with when you have such an intense and in such a vast and diverse rogues gallery like Batman's, because I don't think anyone will argue that Batman has the best rogues gallery, right? I don't think anyone debates that, right? Like he's definitely number one as far as as rogues gallery goes. Do you think so? I mean, I know
Mm,
there's some people up there.
close.
Spider-Man's
It's
up there.
close.
Spider-Man's
Yep, I
definitely
was
up
gonna
there.
say
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's definitely
Ah,
up there. But
but you know what?
it's a tough one
I
though.
will say Batman is number one. You know
Yeah.
what? I will say it right here.
Mhm.
Batman does have the best Rogues
Yeah, I
Gallery
will. Like I said, I
because
think it's just something that I don't like. And if someone said Spider Man, I wouldn't be like, "Oh no, you're out of your mind." Like because
yeah,
obviously you
I
can go,
definitely
you know what I mean. You
I
could
wouldn't
definitely
blink
make that.
twice. I'll
Yeah,
be like, you know what? I could
yeah,
see
you
that. You
can
know,
make that
I
argument.
wouldn't blink twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could totally make that argument. But I'm just saying, as far as like, I guess as far as like people knowing exactly who they are and kind of
Hmm.
knowing every single one of their stories, I feel like Batman is that person. So I feel like just having when you have that big of a rogues gallery, that you do need to sprinkle in their origin stories, like kind of like this movie did, right? Because
Yeah.
we saw Riddlers, we saw Penguins, right? And then we saw,
Yep.
you know, we saw Catwoman's who's basically an anti-hero. And then you see like all of these different stories, and then we'll get on talk about the other one later. But you know what I
Hmm.
mean? You see these little stories and you see them coming, and I love what they did with the Penguin because they finally
Oh my God, so
like
good.
delve into that crime lord like thing
Hmm.
of him being this crime boss. We got away from him being short and it being a deform, but he still
Hmm.
looks like the Penguin. He still acts like the Penguin, and he still feels like the Penguin. And you
I
don't.
have to say,
Mhm.
I really love the twins in this movie.
Oh my gosh, the
They
twins were
put the
great.
twins in this movie, his main henchmen. So
Yeah.
Penguin always had twins,
Hmm.
whether they be females, males. He always had twin henchmen,
Yeah.
and the twins in this movie are fantastic. They have three run-ins with Batman,
Hmm.
whether it be Batman, Bruce Wayne. They had three run-ins, and each time was unique and
Yeah.
hilarious.
And it was so good, so subtle too, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like the first one he walks in and it's like he's like, you know who I am. It's just like,
Yep.
and then he says the same thing as Bruce, and it's so
Yep.
funny. It's because the third time is when they're like, huh, like you know what I mean? Like,
The third time he's not playing games,
yeah.
he just sneaks past them.
Mhm.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this a
Yeah, we're
third
not doing
time."
this a third time. But yeah, showing Penguin's origin and just showing not his like origin, but basically setting up his backstory. And now we know like if we need because also they are setting up a Gotham show for HBO Max with Penguin. I don't know if you knew that.
Did hear about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
With
They're doing a PD
hmm
for the Gotham PD, and
yep.
they're also doing a Penguin. Yes, and it's like his rise
Yeah. Which is
to
great
power.
because
Yeah.
you're getting a high quality actor. That's one thing, right?
Very high quality.
So that, and James Gordon, who in this movie also loved him too,
I loved it.
right?
Loved it.
So and he always gets HBO jobs. I just noticed that. I forget the actor's name on the top of my head, but he's in Westworld, fantastic. He always gets HBO. I love him. But he was great. And then like I think and with the success of Peacemaker, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Definitely these spin-offs of these movies, we do see some success with that. So if you can get like, the same stories involved and stuff like that, like you can definitely, I don't know if you watched Peacemaker, but Suicide Squad came out and then we had the TV show of Peacemaker. And I think DC can really get into something well with these spin-offs, especially if you're getting these good actors, great directors, great actors involved in it. You can always throw Batman into one of those episodes. You can always throw someone
really
into those episodes. Like, you can even what you call it? You can throw Catwoman, she might make a return, and then you have an episode based off of her and she tells you what your journey is like. Her journey is like if you're doing Gotham PD, you can still sprinkle in these little characters, but you can also build a lot of these backstories and a lot of stories. And we do know a lot of stories do come out of Gotham Gotham PD, because Hush, being one of my favorite stories, was heavily involved with the Gotham PD. So if we get Hush,
Yeah.
I will be a happy man also.
And Hush leads into certain other characters
Exactly.
rising, If
Mhm.
you read the comic books, you know which character it leads into.
Yep,
A
we won't
certain
say.
individual that likes wearing red.
Yep. So yes. So like there's so many things, and I'm excited for what this movie brought. And I'm going back to Catwoman, because I feel like we didn't talk enough. But like what she was meant to play was great, right? Like she did her job. She
Yeah.
was this new, up and coming. Like she wasn't really the full Catwoman that a lot of us know at her as yet. So I thought she did really well, like being this, great looking character, being this character that isn't a love interest, like not maybe not a love interest yet, but definitely sparking that wholeness of Bruce, right? And because one of my, like, I do feel like this movie, and this is nitpicking. I don't know if it's nitpicking, but I do feel like this movie didn't show us a lot of Bruce Wayne, which I was okay with. But I can understand,
okay with that.
which I can understand. I can understand where if someone was like, I feel like we didn't see enough of him, right? And I can get that. I can understand that. As a person who's read all the comics and all that stuff, like I'm okay with what we just got, because I feel like I know who Bruce Wayne is, and I feel like Robert Pattinson can pull it off anyway, especially the Bruce Wayne that he was asked to play. I would have liked to see just a little bit more, but we set that up, right? Because now you do see this love interest, because Batman is, Bruce Wayne is a lover boy too, right? Like he does get into all these random relationships with these villains or these anti-heroes or whatever. So I do like that they showed that, but it also showed Bruce, Batman being like, I could maybe, I have a way of getting out of this, right? Like I'm not, obviously I'm always going to stay with my city, because one of the best lines that Catwoman said was like, basically like, you're already taken, meaning like, yes, because you're already taken by Gotham. Like that's his true love, right? And I thought that line was wonderful. And then she's just like, well, if you change your mind, like, you know what I mean? And then she goes off on her own. So I think the Catwoman she was supposed to play, and the one that we needed for this movie, was the one that we got.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone plays their role really well for the world that was and tone set for us.
Yeah.
Everyone really fit into the world that is set for us. And I always like to think of movies in that way, where like, we're big comic book nerds and things like that, but you also have to understand that you got to ask yourself, does this character make sense for the setting that I'm given? You can't just say, well, I wanted Batman to be this way because it's the way I read him.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't make sense for Batman to act a certain way if the rest of the world was like kind of dark and gritty or happy-go-lucky and stuff, and he's kind of broody. Like, you get me? You have to
absolutely.
fit.
You have to fit
whatever
the
tone is
the
there.
tone, and that's a big thing about moviegoers, and even me developing that as I watch these movies is like, you do have to understand that there's certain things can't be written for TV, like for new, for I guess for new watchers, right? Because like
Yeah,
we're, like you
absolutely.
said, we're in tune with all of that, right? But like
We know the history, but
we're
other
also
people
in the
wouldn't know the history.
minority though, right? Because we're not the
Hmm.
target audience. Like as much as people
Not at all.
we want to think that and would love to do, like you do have to set this world up for new coming people, because those are the people who go, a lot of casual people go watch movies, and that's how your
Mhm.
movie actually takes off, is if you have to be able to tell, which is why I like when you change stories and make them modern, like, which again, this movie did a really good job at being like, you know what, I know it knew its audience. A lot of you guys know who Batman is. We don't have to go through
Mhm.
all of this again, right? So I think they did a really good job at doing that. So I, like I said, for me, I just felt like they knew, Matt Reeves did a really good job at knowing what he wanted to put out there. I think I like I my few gripes. I think me personally, but this is again a personal thing.
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah,
gripes.
my gripe,
All right.
I would have liked to seen a little more Alfred. Me personally, I felt like Alfred was there, and like it kind of was, and the reason why I say that is
Right.
because like I didn't feel that impact that I was supposed to
Mm,
feel in the hospital
mm,
scene, because we
yep.
didn't get enough Alfred. Like I didn't
And
get enough time to like to if I was watching this as a person who doesn't know anything about
mhm.
Batman, right? I don't feel like we got enough time to actually establish that, oh, this is basically your father, like relationship.
Okay. And that, oh, you hit it
Yeah.
right on the nail. I was talking about this
Mhm.
with my girlfriend, and I'm literally, we get out of the movie theater, and I'm just like, I'm talking about everything I love, but when it gets to the part where we're talking about like the things that like could have used some work, that was the first thing I brought up.
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't care about Alfred
Mhm.
getting, hurt. And it would have made more sense later on, because the scene we get later on when he visits him in the hospital, it it kind of clashes what the tone is set
Mhm.
earlier,
Mhm.
right? The tone set earlier is literally Alfred, trying to tell him, "Hey, kiddo, maybe you should do this, and you still got to live a life outside the costume." And he's just like, "Shut up, you're not my dad,"
Yeah.
and then boom, it happens early, and now he cares.
Mhm.
It's like obvious, yeah, he cares, but the tone we were getting earlier in the movie is completely different from the scene we had later, where he had more empathy for Alfred, and I felt that kind of clashed a little
Mhm.
bit. And like you said, we didn't get enough.
Yeah.
Like we got like two scenes barely before they went and kabloomied Alfred,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
And I feel like if we
And
would have gotten a scene in between that, of like
mhm,
maybe that would have been a good thing for a flashback, like of Bruce thinking about a time where Alfred like helped him out like as a child, right? Or something along those lines. I'm not saying it had to be a flashback. I'm just throwing out
yeah,
ideas, but like
I don't think it
something.
had to be a flashback, but
Mhm.
something that shows their connection.
Yeah.
Because throughout the whole movie, he like this is a broody Batman.
Mhm.
This is a Batman that's very much is still hurt by
Mhm.
his parents' death. I mean, that's Batman in general,
Yeah.
but like this is a Batman where he really, really has not gotten over this.
Mhm.
Like he is like fresh. I hate everything that
Yeah.
is bad in this city. And he kind of lashes out at Alfred, which makes sense for an early Batman that's still angry. This is he says it all the time in
Yeah.
throughout the movie. I am vengeance. Like
Yep.
he is just this kind of aggressive righteousness. And yeah, we don't really have that camaraderie that we normally get like in the Nolan films where you kind of get this back and
Yeah.
forth between Bruce and Alfred
You get the father
where like
figure. You do.
exactly,
Yeah.
and they're kind of chummy and things like that. We didn't really get that here. And, like you said,
Mhm.
we didn't have really a scene to make us really care that Alfred got injured. We
Yeah.
cared because we know who Alfred is and what he means,
Mhm.
but the movie itself didn't establish that, like, we should really care that Alfred is kind of, hurt or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if they would have done a scene where like Alfred comes and saves him, like like Alfred does in the cartoons and stuff like that, like
Hmm.
come pick up his body. I mean, we even saw it in The Dark Knight where he's just like, I mean, and the Nolan trilogy where he's like, you did all those push-ups, like you said, that chumminess, and like you
Right.
do all those push-ups and you can't move a log, but like he
Yeah,
always came back
exactly.
to him, right? And like We
Mm-hmm.
got some. We like. I know they tried to do that when he's like, "There's a bowl of raspberries there." Like when they try to do it for the
Right.
breakfast. I just felt like we could have used maybe just one more scene, maybe just like
Yeah.
one more scene right before the kabloomy thing happens. Like, you know what I mean? If we had one
Mm-hmm.
more scene to just like reiterate, like, hey, you know, you lost your father, but like Alfred is your father. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's the one who raised you. He's the one who trained you, because even in this one, he says it. He says that I'm the one who trained you. Like, you know what I mean? He
Right.
says it in this. So you
Kind of
that
like an Earth One.
exactly, where he tells him like, I trained you, like I wanted you to, do these things. And I felt like we could have used that, and it would have made that scene in the hospital just hit a little bit harder, right? Like it would have
Mm-hmm.
hit like, oh, like damn, he really does love him. Like, yeah, he was just being a brat earlier because like, he
Right.
thinks he knows it all because this is still year 2 Batman, which he does think he
Mm-hmm.
knows it all. But
Exactly.
like, it would have really sealed that, and it would have really made it hit home just for
Absolutely.
that thing. So that was probably like my major gripe with it. I don't think I had any other, like I had some other things where
Oh, I had one.
go ahead. What else did you have?
So my major gripe, besides the Alfred, actually, is I felt like the third act was a bit sloppy.
Hmm.
And
I could see
the
that.
only reason I felt this way is it felt like the movie wanted to end like 5 times.
That yes, 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 yes. I
It felt
will
like
say
it
that.
it
Hmm.
and it's over. He saved the day. Oh, we're still going,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, okay, okay, that's cool. Because if it ended there, I would have thought this ending was trash. I'm glad
yeah,
it's still going. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And it's ending here. I guess it was better than the last
yeah,
time you tried to. Oh, we're not ending. Oh, we're still going.
yeah.
We're still going. Okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. And and Catwoman saves him,
Hmm.
and you're like, okay, I guess that's the ending. And then nope, it keeps going.
Yeah,
So I felt like the movie kept trying to end,
yeah,
and it kind of like was a
yeah,
go break, go break. And the only reason I even noticed is because the rest of the movie is so immaculate with
yeah,
its pacing that when it does stop, you're like, oh, you hit the brakes hard and you kind
yeah.
of fly forward a little. You're like, what happened?
Yeah.
You know?
It kind of did feel, I know, when you mentioned it, I did feel that way. Like we could have had like 5 separate endings. I was okay with what we got, but yeah, you are completely right with
Right.
the way that it felt like 5. It did feel
Mhm.
like 5 different endings.
It
And
felt like it was trying to end. Like the curtain was about to
yeah,
close, and then they kept acting, so they reopened the curtain.
yeah,
You're like, oh, we're still
they're like,
going,
oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Here, keep going.
the ending we actually got in the end was great
Yeah,
and
yeah,
very symbolic, and how it shows what Batman's gonna do carrying forward. He no
mhm,
longer wants to just be the symbol of vengeance and
yeah.
fear.
He wants to be
He
hope.
wants to actually be a hero.
Hmm.
He wants to be that symbol that's gonna carry Gotham onto its next stages beyond what just happened in this movie.
And the
And I
love for
feel like that
Gotham.
was such a
Hmm.
great development.
Yeah.
That was a great
And it
development.
just shows that love for Gotham that we were talking about, right?
Mhm.
Like that love that he has for that city. Like he no longer, and he also is like, you know what? I can't be this madman who essentially is just going out beating up
Right.
people. Like I have to do more as a hero, and more so that this city does come behind me, like, help me with these things. I also do love how they hinted at the Venom, by the way, towards the
Mhm.
end of that
Yeah,
whole
when he pumps
fight scene.
himself
Yeah,
with the green
yeah.
kind of
Well, yeah,
mixture, yeah.
Bane, yeah. We're just gonna a little Bane
Mhm.
thrown in there. So, yeah, that was really cool. And yeah, the ending that we got where it does, like we said, show that symbolicness of, hey, this guy really cares for this city more than just trying to
Mhm.
put fear into people. It's like he wants to use fear as a source for people to understand. But hey, this is like, I do genuinely care for the city. So I
And
thought
that
that,
ending scene was perfect. The
yeah,
way he does like the sacrifice into the water and things
hmm,
like that. And obviously, he's going to be okay.
yeah,
But the scene that really got me is when he's helping everyone
yeah,
outside of that, and he's holding the flare and everyone is
following
following
him,
him.
yeah.
He's literally
Well shot
symbolically,
too.
if you're into cinema and
Yeah,
shots and stuff like that,
the
he is
shot was
symbolically
gorgeous.
carrying Gotham into the light,
Yeah,
and he's leading them into a new future. And it was like such a beautiful up top Grand Theft Auto scene of just
yeah.
like watching him lead them into the
Oh,
light.
now that you
Like
talk, I got
literally,
goosebumps talking about
yeah,
that.
he
'Cause
is literally leading Gotham into the light, into the future after this very dark and grim kind of thing they
mhm,
went through. and I was just like, "Oh, that is so beautiful. That is awesome." And it's something only movie nerds are really gonna
Yeah.
really get, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because I felt the same way, and I was just like, because I mean, I was watching that scene, and I was like, oh, I'm in my head like, what a fabulous shot! Like, it's this character that is known for being a dark character, known for all
Mhm.
this stuff, but also the symbolicness of a bat essentially holding light. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that, just that,
it's
and leading him, like you
it
said,
was
it's
great.
just, it's so symbolic and just how you see it and how it plays out. It's truly wonderful. Like Matt Reeves deserves a lot of credit for the way that
He does.
this movie
You
was
can't argue with
directed,
it.
the way that he helped write it. It's just
He co-wrote it, yeah.
a well written movie, like directed. And
Very
like I
good.
said, I know people, there's going to be some, but genuinely, I'm seeing a lot of people as of right now. It's actually the highest rated audience Rotten Tomato score. So, which
Which
is
is great.
which says a lot because that means a lot of people have gotten past that whole Robert Pattinson thing and they watched it
Mhm.
and they gave it a chance and people have really enjoyed it. So I'm happy to see that. I'm always happy when all these movies do successful. Like I want all comic book movies to be great. Like I know people always think, oh, you're being like, I'm not one of those guys who are fanboys. I have an unlimited supply of both of those comic books in my house.
Yes,
Like, you know
very
what I
much
mean?
so.
I'm a fan of comics. I'm a fan of great stories. So I do not want to see any studio fail, like any of them fail when it comes to
Exactly.
making movies because I want more. Like I wouldn't, if you would have told me 10 years ago, we would have gotten, even 10 years ago when, I mean, Marvel still became popular, that we would have gotten the universes that we've gotten and just the amount of
Mhm.
storytelling that we've gotten. It's just, I would have never dreamed it. I mean, 20 years ago as a kid, when I really got into this stuff, like, 20, 25 years ago, it's
Yeah.
just like, I would have never thought we would have seen this because of and now that we're getting these well made movies and well directed and these big name actors are coming to do these movie roles, it makes me happy. So,
Yeah, back then, the only Shazam you were watching
oh
was
man.
with, Shaq.
Oh man, but yeah, so yeah, so now we have this world and this rich, stories, and I'm hoping. I saw the box numbers they're doing well. I think it made like 300 million over the weekend and stuff like that, which is a great
I hope
opening.
that they have more success.
I hope they
This
make a
movie
billion.
deserves it.
Me too. I hope it makes a lot of money. So because uh Patterson did an interview and he said he's down to come back. He's down to do another one, and they want to do Court of Owls, which again a
Oh,
top
I
five
would love it.
top five Batman stories. So if you
Easy.
give me Court of Owls, if you give me Hush, and then we didn't even talk about this, which before we wrap it up, we did get a little Joker reference. They did it really smart, right? I think
Mhm.
they did it really smart by not actually showing us who
Left
was
them in the
playing him.
shadows.
They didn't
Yeah.
show us, even though it is I forget the actor's name, but he was in Internals. Um, gosh, who did he?
He played like the Dark Knight in the Eternals, right?
Yeah, he
No.
was in Eternals.
Was he the Black Knight?
No,
No, he wasn't the Black
he's
Knight in
not Black
Eternals.
Knight.
He
He's
was
it starts with a D. Oh,
uh
yeah, but
yeah, I know
yeah,
who you're talking
yeah.
about
He played him. He did the voice. He did a really
now. Mhm.
cool, really nice Joker voice, really great
Mhm.
laugh. Definitely got that tone that of the Joker because we know who it is, right? Like he's just like the
Yeah.
city, that whole little dialogue where he's talking, and then it definitely sets up, Joker just coming out and then getting all these, villains, and then we can get a bigger, a story like that. But I thought he
Yeah,
did a
one
really good
thing I
job.
thought they were gonna do
Hmm.
in this movie is with the Riddler and the way everything turned out, it looked like they were setting up for, I don't know if you ever read the comic, it was in New 52 Zero Year.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And that involved the Riddler
Yep.
basically bringing Gotham back down to like no technology,
Yeah.
kind of caveman times,
Because he
giant floods. And I
flooded
was
it
like,
in
oh my
that.
gosh.
Yeah, he
I
did
was like, oh my
exactly the
God, are
same
they doing
story. Yeah.
0 Year? Are you
Yeah.
doing 0 Year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I was pretty excited. And
so
yeah, with the Joker, I thought maybe I was like, no, they can't be doing like the war between jokes and riddles
yeah,
because,
that's too
and they're
way
kind of
down.
enemies.
Yeah.
You know, here it looks like they're trying to be allies,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So it looked interesting. But I will say, when you kind of hear the laugh and you see who it is, I did kind of roll my eyes a little
Yeah.
because I was just like, oh, I'm so tired of the Joker.
Yeah.
I
I,
was like, ah.
yeah, I mean, especially because it would, but like I said, I like that they did that because you don't really, it doesn't have to be Joker, right? Even though we got heavy reference to
It
it being
heavily.
heavily referenced, and we are like, yeah, it's a Joker. It doesn't have to be, and on top of that, not showing his face means you don't know it can be its own Joker. You can still, if you wanted to make a collab with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, you can.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that I think those two worlds fit, but you know what I mean? Even though they're both really dark, like they're darker styles, I just don't think the Joaquin Joker,
Yeah.
as much as I
This
love that
world
movie, is just not the same world because that's like a hyper realistic world. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. I would say the Walking Phoenix Joker is more like the Nolan films where it's like hyper
yeah,
realistic, where this movie is a little bit loose. It
yeah,
it understands it's a movie,
mhm.
and you get that sense. And one of the moments is literally in the Batman car chase scene when you see him like that ramp magically appears in
Yeah,
front of him.
out of nowhere.
Basically, it for like a split second, you're like, oh right, this is a movie.
Yeah, yeah. You're
And,
like, okay,
he
he's
does.
gonna do something epic, like
Yeah, it
So
was badass. But the movie understands exactly what it is. It doesn't try to be over realistic, and frankly, I actually enjoy the fact that Batman's a bit more floaty. He's
Mhm.
allowed to be a bit more cartoonish,
Yeah,
I guess you could say. But
mhm.
other than that, I mean, I would still say this movie is like 90%
Realism. Yeah,
based and grounded, realistic.
yeah,
But it does have that leeway of like, yeah, screw it, let him jump a ramp.
yeah.
It'll
Let
be
him jump
fine.
around for sure.
Yeah,
Let him do that, like what I mean. So yeah,
yeah.
it was definitely like we said overall. And I mean, this will be our final thoughts, but overall, I thought it was fantastic. I thought they did a lot of really, really good things, and I think this is a good way to build this world. And it's what I've been saying all along with what DC needs to do is go away from trying to create the universe because you've already
Yep.
kind of messed that
Abandon it.
up. But what you can do is you can make good movies. If you just make great movies,
Mhm.
you have one of the best reset buttons ever in Flashpoint that you haven't used yet. So if you ever needed to, you could, but you've also have one of the best, you have great DC stories that involve the multiverse. You have Crisis on the Infinite Earths. You can go so many places with just building good stories and them not being connected. So I think they did, this is a step in the right direction of doing it this way. So, what were your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is everyone should go watch this movie.
Mhm.
If you are a Batman fan, if you are a cinema fan, if you are a fan of blessing your eyeballs, go watch this movie. It is fantastic. I absolutely enjoyed my time there. Um, it's one of probably the most well-directed movies I've seen in a while.
Mhm.
It's incredible storytelling. It has its issues. Like
Mhm.
every once in a while, you kind of like pick out like little things, but the only reason you see those little things that aren't absolutely perfect is because the rest of the movie is so tight knit, amazing, like just well made. And
Yeah.
if you see something like a little bit beneath that quality, that's the only thing that reason those things stand out. It's because everything else is so amazing.
Mm.
And this is, if The Dark Knight didn't exist, I've said this before, and you can easily quote me. If The
Mm.
Dark Knight didn't exist, this is the best Batman movie.
You get
I'm gonna say that.
that.
If The Dark Knight didn't exist, this is the best Batman movie.
Okay.
Now, is Robert Pattinson the best Batman?
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that, but in terms of overall the movie,
Yeah.
this is an amazing film,
Right.
and Robert Pattinson does a great job. And everything is just so wonderful in this movie. The talent, the storytelling, the moments, and everything made sense. I didn't sit there and scratch my head and be like, I don't know if that fits. Like, no, everything was great with very little flaws, and everyone should go watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like I said, for me, and like I said, this doesn't mean it's the best, but this was definitely the most Batman feeling movie that we've ever
Hmm.
watched. Like I've ever watched, and I'm again hardcore. I mean, I've got Batman tattooed to my body. So like so like, you know what I mean? Like it's just I agree with you on that on those ends. And I'm gonna wait, but I do want to do a ranking which we might bring Richard back of all the Batman movies. I know
Oh,
Kyle really
please
wants to
do.
do that.
I'm
So
here.
I
I'm
know,
here to start the
yeah, I
controversy.
know
I'm here.
you and Kyle. So Kyle wants to do that. He's definitely going to be in on that. But Richard, before we go, let everyone know where we can find you. I'm going to put your links in the description, but let everyone know where they can find you.
You can find me in a place in the universe, maybe somewhere north or south. Just put out my Richard symbol out to the sky, and much like
Oh,
Batman, I'll go towards it.
okay, perfect.
But yeah, no. Right now I'm not doing too much. I've been pretty busy. So, if you want to hit me up, I guess I have one of those Twitter things at godtier_rich.
There you
I
go.
I have one of those if you guys want to, but
And a
yeah,
YouTube page.
you know, I got one of those. It's there. It's gathering dust. It's a little archived right now.
Okay,
But if you want to check me out, come see me at Friend Simulator.
there we go.
If you need a friend from a distance, a very far distance, we're still, stay away from me right now. But yeah, no. Come check out Friend Simulator on YouTube. I am thinking of making a grand turn right
Nice,
now because I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. Because I'm doing many things.
nice, nice.
But yeah, come check me out there.
Perfect. And I'll put the links of the description. If you guys want to go follow, please go do that. And like you heard it here first, the comeback. So you heard it here first, just saying. Anyway, we want to know what you guys think. Also, please put the, hit the comments, but hit the comment section. Let us know what you thought about the movie. And, if you want to, just let us know what you think, like your little ranking, maybe give us a top 3, see what you got up there. So, thank you, Richard, for coming in, talking some talking some Batman with me. I do appreciate you, bro.
No,
But
thank you. I've been dying to talk about this movie. Not enough people have seen it,
mhm,
and I am just happy that I was able to speak about it.
nice. So definitely thank you for joining me on this. Everyone else, thank you. If you guys stuck around to the end of the video, you are my favorites, and you'll only know that if you stuck around to the end. So if you haven't, then you won't know that you're my favorite. So, all right. So that's going to be it for us. Until next time, Fire Team out.